Have you ever wondered why some women choose solitude? Not as an accident of fate, not as a consequence of rejection, but as a deliberate act of power? Why she withdraws not into despair, but into silence, not into isolation, but into sovereignty. You might think she's lost, unreachable, unfinished. But what if she's the most whole among us? The one who no longer seeks permission to exist. She is not running. She is returning to herself. In a world that weaponizes loneliness to control the feminine, a woman who walks alone is dangerous. Because she cannot be seduced by the promise of being chosen. She already chose herself. She lives beyond the hunger for approval. Her soul has ceased asking to be seen. She sees herself, and in that quiet recognition, she has become a threat to the invisible architecture of expectation. Carl Jung warned us that what we do not face within, we meet as fate. This woman, this sovereign, is the one who turned inward. When others numbed the ache with noise, she descended into silence. When others rushed to fill voids with counterfeit intimacy, she made peace with the emptiness. She turned her solitude into sanctuary, and there she met her shadow. The shadow, that unseen force of our disowned truths. The rage she wasn't allowed to express. The sensuality she was taught to repress. The intellect that made her intimidating. The dreams deemed too grand, the voice too loud, the heart too soft. All the pieces she was told were too much or not enough. She reclaimed them, not with fury, but with reverence. And so she walks, not away, but toward the place where her truth lives unedited. She walks away from performance and toward essence. She no longer dances for validation. She doesn't want to be understood by those who refuse to know themselves. Her presence demands depth, not attention. She doesn't sparkle to seduce. She radiates to be. And if you meet her gaze, truly meet it, you'll feel it. A piercing stillness. Not coldness, but clarity. The clarity of someone who no longer fears absence. The woman who walks alone is not waiting. She's becoming. She has traded fleeting connection for eternal communion with her soul. Many confuse her detachment with arrogance. They say she's too much, too quiet, too selective. But what they fear isn't her silence. It's what that silence reveals. For in a culture that worships external noise, her stillness is rebellion. She no longer shrinks to fit expectations. She expands to honor her evolution. And no, she does not hate men. She does not despise intimacy. But she has outgrown the fairy tale that told her she must be half to be loved. She knows now, wholeness is not found in another's arms. It is cultivated in the fires of solitude. Jung said that individuation, the journey toward the self, requires the death of the false self, the collapse of the persona, the surrender of masks. She has done this work. She has stripped off everything that wasn't hers, the pleasing, the performing, the pretending. And now, she walks unclothed of illusion, dressed only in her truth. Some will call her intimidating. That's fine. Authenticity is always frightening to those still wearing masks. She does not perform vulnerability as a strategy. She embodies it as a state of being, and this terrifies those who confuse power with control. She is powerful because she no longer wishes to control or be controlled. Her strength is not domination, it is presence. You can't buy her. You can't coax her into compliance. You can't seduce her with potential. She sees through it all. Her intuition is not a party trick. It's a shield, a compass, a memory passed down from every silenced woman before her. She is the dream of her mother's mother, the one who refused to settle. She does not explain herself to those committed to misunderstanding her. She has stopped apologizing for her depth, her standards, her need for sacred space. And in that refusal, she has found a deeper kind of love, the kind that does not dim, does not bind, does not ask her to abandon herself in the name of romance. This woman, she is not bitter. She is not cold. She is not broken. She is refined. She has sat with every version of herself. The girl who begged, the woman who compromised, the soul that collapsed. And in the ashes of all she was told to be, She has risen into who she truly is. There's a quiet revolution in her steps. You may not hear it, but you'll feel it. A gentle tremor in the space where she stands, where falsehoods unravel and truth sharpens. Her existence says what words cannot. I belong to no one but myself. And if she chooses to love again, it won't be to fill a void. It will be to share her overflow. She will not ask for permission to be loved. She will offer her presence as a gift, not a plea. This is not the woman who waits by the phone. This is not the woman who molds herself to be liked. This is not the woman who fears being alone. This is the woman who walks alone, because she knows her soul cannot be followed by those who have not yet faced themselves. There's a reason the world tries to explain her away, because she doesn't fit, not into the mold of the docile lover, not into the fantasy of the woman who waits to be chosen, not into the frame of the eternally accommodating mother figure, ready to sacrifice herself for a taste of closeness. No, she broke the mold the day she stopped asking, "What's wrong with me?" and started asking, "Why do I keep giving my light to those who cannot hold it?" That shift wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, slow, almost invisible to those who only watch the surface. But deep inside, tectonic plates were moving. The unconscious was stirring. The mask was slipping. Carl Jung believed that what we resist within becomes our prison. And this woman? She chose to stop resisting the parts of herself that once made others uncomfortable. Her assertiveness, her stillness, her intuition, her complexity, her longing for something real in a world addicted to performance. She allowed the parts she'd buried to rise, and with them came the realization there's a vast difference between being alone and being empty. Because solitude, for her, is not a sentence. It is ceremony. You can see it in how she walks, unhurried, not trying to impress, not chasing glances or curating personas. She walks with the elegance of someone who no longer seeks outside what she has found within. She's not proving. She's not hiding. She's simply being. And that alone is a revolt against a culture that tells women they must earn worthiness through proximity to someone else's attention. There was a time when she would have accepted less, when she would have twisted herself into softer shapes just to keep the peace, when she would have laughed at jokes that wounded her, stayed in rooms where her silence was mistaken for consent. That time is gone, because something happened. Maybe it was the final betrayal. Maybe it was a moment of collapse. Or maybe it was a slow, dawning grief over the years she spent loving men who loved her only in fragments. But whatever it was, it broke the spell. She saw the lie. That love without respect isn't love at all. That being chosen by someone who doesn't know themselves is not a prize. It's a trap. And so she made the most radical choice a woman can make. She stopped performing for love. She stopped sacrificing her wholeness for breadcrumbs. She stopped giving the best of herself to people who only wanted pieces. She learned that real love is not a transaction. It is not manipulation disguised as romance. It does not ask her to disappear to make someone else feel big. She learned to spot the difference between attention and devotion, between desire and depth, between someone who wants her body and someone who wants her soul. And the price of this awareness? Her comfort, her illusion, her belonging in a world that prefers women malleable, palatable, easily pleased. She gave all that up, and what she gained in return was unspeakable sovereignty. Now, she doesn't need to raise her voice to be heard. Her presence speaks volumes. She doesn't need to compete, compare, or convince. She knows who she is. And when a woman knows who she is, she becomes magnetic, not because she tries, but because she simply refuses to abandon herself. That kind of woman is rare. She won't chase, but she'll invite. She won't demand, but she'll require. She won't manipulate, but she will discern. And she will walk away, not to punish, but to protect the sacredness of her energy. Men who are used to passive submission won't know what to do with her. They will try to tame her with labels. Call her too independent, too intense, too much. But she isn't too much. She is precise. She is intentional. She is what happens when a woman stops dimming her fire so others can feel warm. This woman understands that not every connection is meant to become a relationship. Some are simply mirrors, showing her where she's healed and where she's still growing. She no longer confuses chemistry with compatibility. And when she sees red flags, she doesn't paint them white. She turns and walks, not out of bitterness, but out of reverence for the path she has carved. And she is not lonely, because in her silence, she has found companionship. In her solitude, she has found safety. In her inner world, she has built a cathedral where no one enters without clean hands and an open heart. She does not crave saving. She craves seeing. And if you cannot meet her with presence, with depth, with the kind of courage that only comes from having faced your own shadow, then you cannot walk beside her. Because the woman who walks alone is not waiting. She is preparing. She is preparing not for a savior, not for a lover to complete her, but for the inevitable emergence of the next version of herself. She is not paused in time. She is becoming, constantly, cyclically, with every breath she takes in silence, with every no she whispers when her soul isn't met. You see, this is a woman who has come to understand that stillness is not stagnation. It is depth. It is discernment. It is defiance in a culture that demands instant gratification and easy answers. While others rush to label her, with loneliness, with pride, with stubbornness, she knows better. She knows that integration takes time. That healing isn't linear. That becoming whole sometimes means disappearing from everything that once made her feel visible but not seen. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And that is the essence of her path. This woman who walks alone is not detached because she doesn't care. She is detached because she refuses to participate in illusions any longer. She has faced the abyss inside herself and made peace with the monsters that others deny. She has looked at the shadow and whispered, "I see you." And that acknowledgement, that bravery, has given her an armor made not of steel, but of truth. When you look at her now, you may think she's impenetrable, but that's a mistake. She feels everything. In fact, she feels more than most. Her heart is wide open, but it's guarded by wisdom. Her tears, when they come, are not signs of fragility. They're sacred releases of what her body no longer needs to carry. She doesn't flinch at pain. She listens to it, learns from it, lets it sculpt her into someone even more honest. And this honesty, this refusal to lie to herself, is what separates her from the world she once tried to please. This woman doesn't date for entertainment. She doesn't entertain half-truths. She doesn't feign interest just to avoid awkward silences. She's not interested in games, in guesswork, in showing up as half of herself just to keep someone else comfortable. When she sits across from you, she brings her whole self, wounded, wise, open, discerning. And she expects the same. Not perfection, but presence. Not fantasy, but realness. To some, that will be too much. To the ones who still fear their own depths, she will appear intimidating. But to those who have also descended into their darkness and returned with gold, she will feel like home. And until that energy comes, equally clear, equally whole, equally sovereign, she will remain alone. Not bitterly, not longingly, but with grace, with elegance, with the steady knowing that what is meant for her cannot be hurried, cannot be forced, cannot be taken by anyone else's desire. Because this woman, she's not here to be consumed. She's here to be met. She's tired of relationships that trade authenticity for approval. She's tired of dynamics built on control, on silence, on fear. She has lived in those stories. She knows their shape, and she has burned them all down to build something new, something sacred. Her love now is not casual. It is consecrated. It is for those who honor her wholeness, who understand that love is not possession, but presence. That intimacy is not performance, but truth-telling. She will not beg. She will not chase. She will not shapeshift. Because the woman who has found herself does not lose herself for love. And if you cannot hold that, if you are not prepared to see her fully, not just in the light, but in the shadow, she will feel it. She will know. Her body, her intuition, Her very cells are trained now to recognize dishonesty, even if it's wrapped in charm. And she will not override that signal. Not anymore. You see, this woman has made too many excuses in the past. For others. For herself. She knows what it's like to abandon her own needs in the name of connection. She knows what it feels like to wake up next to someone and still feel completely unmet. She will never go back there, because now she knows loneliness isn't the worst fate. Losing yourself is. So she walks alone not because she's failed at love, but because she's mastered the art of choosing herself first. Because she's built a life that reflects her essence. And she knows that any love that enters her life now must amplify that essence, not compromise it. She is not waiting for a man to pick her. She is creating a life so sacred, so aligned, so deeply fulfilling, that anyone who joins it must earn their place by the way they see her, not how they need her. Because she is no longer available for love that costs her peace. And what many call independence, she calls alignment. What others call cold, she calls clarity. What some interpret as arrogance is, in fact, discernment. And what she once apologized for, she now celebrates. Her solitude, her standards, her unapologetic devotion to her own becoming. This is not a phase. This is not a season. This is a new archetype rising. A woman who doesn't chase status or settle for almosts. A woman who knows her soul and honors it above all else. She is not lonely. She is lit from within. She speaks not to impress, but to reveal. She is not trying to win your affection. She is listening to your energy, to whether it feels safe, steady, sacred, because she's been through the fire. She knows what it means to confuse chemistry for compatibility, adrenaline for love, attention for devotion. And now, she lives by a different compass, the one that points inward, not outward. This is a woman who no longer fears being misunderstood. She has accepted that not everyone has the depth to see her clearly. Not everyone has done the work to sit across from her and not project their own unmet wounds on her silence, her ambition, her autonomy. She understands this. And still, she stays open. But open does not mean available to all. She opens like a sacred gate, not a revolving door. Her openness is earned through truth, not sweet talk. Through presence, not pressure. Through coherence, not control. And when she gives, it is not from lack. It is from fullness, from overflow, from the garden she cultivated inside herself when no one else showed up with water. Because this woman, she is no longer addicted to being chosen. She has chosen herself in the places others abandoned her. She has shown up for her inner child, held her inner wounds, breathed through heartbreaks that left her body shaking. She did not numb it. She did not bypass it. She did not throw glitter on her pain and call it empowerment. She faced it all, and in that sacred facing, she became unshakable. Carl Jung taught us that healing requires confrontation with the unconscious, that the gold of the soul lies buried beneath the dragon of fear. This woman has met the dragon, not once, not twice, but over and over again, until she realized that the dragon was never there to destroy her. It was the guardian of her power, and now that she has claimed it, she refuses to give it away cheaply. She doesn't fall for illusions anymore, not even her own. She has learned to question every story she was taught about what it means to be a woman, to love, to serve, to sacrifice. She has unlearned the conditioning that told her her value lies in being needed. She doesn't need to be needed. She needs to be met. And the men who encounter her, they either rise or they recoil, because she does not beg for love. She does not perform fragility. She does not pretend to be less intelligent, less capable, less whole, just to soothe someone else's insecurity. She knows the cost of shrinking, and she will never pay it again. This woman is a mirror, and mirrors don't lie. That's why people either love her or fear her, because she reflects exactly where you are in your own journey. If you've done your shadow work, if you've integrated your wounds, if you've made peace with your chaos, she will feel like truth. But if you're still hiding from yourself, she will feel like a threat, a storm, a disruption. She is not trying to be liked. She's trying to be real. She has nothing to prove, nothing to perform, nothing to manipulate. Her presence is her power, and that power is rooted not in dominance, but in discernment, not in control, but in consciousness, not in walls, but in boundaries. She knows now that love is not something to earn, it is something to recognize. And until someone stands before her with eyes that truly see, not just her body, but her being, she will keep walking. Alone, with grace, with power, with the dignity of someone who finally understands that being alone is not a curse. It is a consecration, because in her solitude, she has found what many spend a lifetime chasing: wholeness. And no one, not even the most dazzling lover, can give that to her now, because she has become it. She is it, a woman who carries her own home inside her chest. There's a calm in her now, not because life stopped being hard, but because she stopped betraying herself to make it easier for others. She no longer enters rooms where she has to hide her truth just to belong. She would rather walk alone in her authenticity than be surrounded in shallow imitation. She no longer doubts her worth. She no longer asks, "Am I too much?" Instead, she asks, "Is this space deep enough for me to exist fully?" And if the answer is no, she leaves. Not out of bitterness, but out of devotion. Devotion to her path, to her peace, to her presence. This is not a woman who needs you. This is a woman who wants, and that is far more powerful, because her want is not a cry from an empty place. It is a conscious choice from someone who knows how to be alone and chooses you anyway. If that doesn't terrify you, then perhaps you're ready. And perhaps if you are ready, you will understand this. She is not here to soothe your wounds with her softness. She is not your emotional nursemaid, nor the balm for your unspoken ache. She is not the mother you never had, nor the fantasy you built in the absence of your own self-awareness. She is a mirror of everything you've buried, denied, suppressed, and tried to silence. And standing in front of her will summon your truth, whether you are ready for it or not. Because the woman who walks alone has walked through fire, not once, but repeatedly, and has emerged not unscarred, but undefeated. Each wound, each abandonment, each quiet heartbreak taught her not just how to survive, but how to transform pain into clarity. She does not waste suffering. She does not romanticize resilience. She alchemizes. She integrates. She uses everything. Carl Jung once wrote that the psychological task of midlife is to unite the opposites, to reconcile the paradoxes within us so we no longer live in duality. This woman has stopped choosing between strength and softness, between silence and expression, between desire and discipline. She has embraced all of it. She knows now that the soul is not either slash or, it is both slash and that is what makes her whole. She is the storm and the stillness. She can tear illusions apart with a single gaze, yet hold space for your truth like no one ever has. She can walk away from what no longer serves her without bitterness, yet grieve what was lost with the sacredness of a mourner laying a flower on a grave. She has learned that endings are not failures, they are initiations. And love, to her now, is sacred. It is no longer about possession or passion alone. It is about reverence, about being witnessed in your darkness and held in your light, not caged, not consumed, not reshaped to fit someone's projection of the ideal woman, but honored, as is, unfiltered, unmasked. This is what she offers: presence that doesn't flinch, truth that doesn't sugarcoat, love that doesn't enslave. Her affection is not bait for validation. It is a blessing. It is rare, and it is real, and it will dismantle every illusion you've ever held about intimacy if you let it. And yet, she does not throw it at your feet. She offers it like sacred fire. If your hands are clean and your spirit sincere, you may warm yourself by it. But come with falsehood, and she will withdraw, not to punish, but to protect, because she has learned that love is not always about staying. Sometimes it is about leaving, about refusing to diminish yourself so another can remain comfortable. Sometimes love is found in the silence that follows your last boundary, in the echo of your footsteps walking away from the familiar cage you once called connection. She has loved and lost. She has broken and rebuilt. She has kissed the lips of charm and slept in the arms of betrayal. But through it all, she has remained herself. Or rather, she has found her way back to herself. And now, she guards that self like a sacred flame. There is no bitterness in her, only clarity. She no longer confuses longing with love. She no longer accepts chaos as chemistry. She no longer mistakes being needed for being valued. These are the lessons written in the lines of her body, the fire in her voice, the stillness in her stare. And make no mistake, she longs. Deeply, profoundly, for soul connection, for union that does not stifle, for a love that holds her as vast and vivid and wild as she is. But she will never again trade her soul for warmth. She has learned to build a fire from within. So if you meet her with your whole self. Bring your shadow, your wounds, your desire for truth, not your performance, not your charm, not your need to be saved or praised or mothered. She is not here to complete you. She is here to walk beside you if, and only if, you've already begun walking toward yourself. The woman who walks alone is not waiting. She is choosing. Every day, she chooses her peace over chaos, her truth over performance, her solitude over superficiality. And if the love she longs for does not arrive in this lifetime, she will not weep as if she is lacking. She will celebrate because she has touched something greater than romance. She has touched liberation, and that is the most intimate thing a soul can know. The world will never understand her completely. It will keep asking her to soften, to bend, to settle. It will call her names meant to shrink her, difficult, demanding, distant. But she will not flinch, because she has become the woman she once needed. The one who walks away, not because she is unloving, but because she has finally remembered what it means to be free. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.